Comeback for Vasilev and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal in his Union debut? The record signing! Off and running in his first appearance for the club!
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. This is not Todd Lewis. This is a standing show. The inmates are running the operation today as Todd Lewis takes he was at the game yesterday, so he was doing some good on the ground journalism covering the Union at Orlando, which of course turned out to be a loss, but not without some excitement in a variety of ways. A 7-goal thriller. Had to write for MLS about it, specifically about the young guy going to Manchester City. But I'm so glad to be here with you all. Jose, as you guys know, and I have a dear friend of the show. Had to get him out of the
USL League 2. It started.
Yeah, USL League 2 work. I know that's going in full swing. It feels like I keep on seeing signings being announced, despite some of it already starting left and right. So, Mark Kelkenberg, Kelken Sports, how are you?
Good. I mean, like I said on Twitter, it would have been nice to join you under better circumstances, but I think a good group therapy session tonight is maybe welcomed.
I think I'd agree with you. What's really interesting about this, Mark, and I don't know, I know Todd knows this. I like to think that you know this too. I kind of appreciate the chaos of a season, but 2024 was entirely too much chaos. 2025 was pretty chaotic because of the constant high of that team and then those very low valleys of, losing to Nashville the way that they did and then losing to Vancouver the way that they did. But then ultimately, a peak with getting the Shield. And then this year, just another super chaotic year that for, again, as much as I enjoy the chaos, I did not expect. And we haven't had you on screen for a little while. We had to get you out of the retirement home, as Matt Kelkenberg mentions. I'm intrigued to hear your take on the season so far, obviously as a bystander from far, far away.
I mean, I'll say that, my view of MLS, it's definitely a league known for its parity. And I think that's, who knows how massaged it is to where it kind of keeps certain markets engaged. I mean, we saw it with LA Galaxy going from MLS Cup to just struggling the same way that Union are. Obviously, we didn't win the MLS Cup, but coming off a good season, there's no guarantees that you're ever going to, be a dynasty in the modern era. It's not like the early days of MLS. So, there was always that potential. And I think, obviously losing key players has been the big topic. I haven't, sat down and watched every single game the way you guys do, but for at least the past few, I've tuned in and taken notes. And I think the other talking point that comes up a lot is, people know how the Union are going to play. They've had a couple years or year and a half now to work out what the right game plan is to go against them. And that's kind of my big critique this year is, 4-2-2-2, very dead set on that formation. Obviously last night we saw some wrinkles thrown in that just didn't pan out, which I'm sure we'll get to, but it's just, and the staff, you'd have to say, with all the departures, with the new guys coming in, that, they aren't ready products. I think we've all seen good glimpses of them, or good moments, but we've also seen there's a lot of work to be done. It's taking into account like, yeah, we're going to have to develop these guys. And then when they do get on the field, how do we set up the team to make sure that they're successful? Because they're just not the same level of maturity that the guys that the main three that went out the door. So, I'm not too surprised where they're at, but it's also last thing I'll say, and I'll jump it back to you, but I just definitely feel like this is a season of the what ifs.
Yes.
What if the ball was just a half a foot to the left, and it, like, how many posts and crossbars they've hit this year, or even in the past 3 games alone. So, and then, I don't know, you could just what if this whole season to death. And I feel like they've just been on the very wrong side of all of the what ifs. There's no, or very minimal sides of like the good bounces, the good fortune. So, I'm not blaming it all on that, but that's, I feel, is a component here.
Yeah, I think I would even go as far as saying that the what ifs almost stem back, and I'm sure this is something we're going to touch on. I know I mentioned it with Mike Barrera and Evan Knows Ball on the post-game show, but it feels like the what ifs maybe even started at the end of last season, right? With the investigation and ultimately the suspension of Ernst Tanner, right? What if he was still around and it was in a different scenario, right? What if he was the one helping steer the ship a little bit more than probably would happen? Again, like, I don't know, it's not my story, et cetera. So,
and on that note, Todd had a comment here. I guess he's tuning in. Because this is the case too. It's like, over the off season, because they aren't just like having a list of 5 guys. They have 20 targets. I'm sure there was targets ahead of the guys they brought in. It doesn't mean that they didn't like them, because they wouldn't just sign a guy that they didn't like, but it's not the guy that they wanted. So it's kind of shuffled down the list, and it's, what type of deals could have been done under, a known power negotiator who can bring like these gems into the club. And then you kind of roll back and you get the plan B and C to fill in roster spots. And again, not to say that those guys can't develop, but it'll just take a little bit more time.
And time is something that they're going to get in 3 weeks time, right? 2 weeks time, I guess, more or less.
2 more games.
2 more games once to go into the international break, and everything that is MLS, that is consumer or fan-facing will cease, but certainly operations within the club will be full steam ahead with, I'm sure, trying to figure out how to potentially salvage this season, right? In a league that allows and allots, 66% of its own participants to make the playoffs, and all it really takes is to make it and maybe get hot at the right time. And we've seen that time and time again from the Union, right? And going into Leagues Cup, for example, and just becoming an absolute juggernaut of a tournament team. But for now, let's go ahead and begin sort of talking a little bit. I want to be mindful of, my time. I have 2 little boys that are asleep. My wife is out in Rhode Island, so I'm fully expecting one of them to stroll down because they want to sleep in my bed rather than sleep in their own bed. But being mindful of just a quick 30, 40-minute show altogether to put a nice bow on this going into Saturday's matchup against Columbus. So, Orlando City 4, Philadelphia Union 3. Ojeda gets a brace. Dorsey announces a pregnancy. Iloski scores a goal. Sullivan, who I think is going to be a big topic of it all, and Bender, goal scorers. What did you make of this madness, Mark? It must have been interesting for you. Obviously, you enjoy watching soccer, period. But to watch a 7-goal thriller like this, I'm sure it was
especially
interesting.
on a Wednesday night.
Yes.
It was good. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest takeaway right off the bat was, going 2 down fairly early. Like, half hour in, I mean, that's maybe one of, how we're the positivity podcast, but I mean, we'll be realistic because I do have like some critiques to throw in throughout this episode. But to start off, like, how many teams the MLS like going down 2-0 on the road on a Wednesday, just kind of pack it in and end up getting shelled 5-0 by the end of the game. So I know there's like questions about like, the mentality and all that. I'm not sure if that, I don't have enough evidence to say that the players won't care anymore now that the playoffs are getting further and further out of reach. I think they'll all have things to play for, and that's a part of Cavan's game. He has a lot to prove to a lot of people, especially with the Red Bull teenagers doing well. I feel like he's got that ego to where he wants to get his name back in the mix. So, I mean, he'll always give 100%. I think there's several other guys on the team that they could have one win by the end of the season with like 3 games to go, and they aren't going to be packing it in. They'll still keep playing. And we saw that with how they handled the game. I know they pulled one back before halftime that gave them some belief that they could. But yeah, I mean, anytime that you get to see 7 goals, as obviously I'm pro-union, but as like maybe more of a neutral, technically, it's always, you like those games. It's far better than a 0-0 draw.
I think it was a record, if I remember correctly. And just to spare you from the comments, Olaski's goal came in the 54th minute, not ahead of the half. I think he.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Just making
I
sure
have
not
them like listed, but I just don't have the times on them.
That's okay. Just sparing you from the nitpicky comments. Olaski's goal was in the 54th minute. To your point of Cavan, and he's somebody we're going to talk about for probably the majority of this episode, I would think, or a good bit of it. I had mentioned this to whether it was Jillian or Todd. I can't recall. I probably talk into a microphone and type into a screen way too much that I don't remember who I'm sharing it with. But I think that there is some serious weight behind that thinking, Mark, which is I think I share it with you in terms of it has to be so difficult for him, who with his goal became the 8th youngest player to ever score in MLS. He's the youngest player to ever sign with the Union. The first homegrown with the type of deal that he got with how much money he's making as a 16-year-old. I think it was like $684,000 this league season. But then you have the pressure of seeing the Red Bull kids, Julian Hall specifically, right, who technically scored when he was he was the youngest to ever score a hat trick on the night. So on top of that, as a whole, MLS picture-wise, 58 goals scored last night across the league, which is incredible, including David Vasquez getting a brace and a slew of other things that happened across the league. But I would think that with Cavan, there's a mental side of it all of wanting to, live up to the expectations that have been created for him, but he has also fueled in the way that he has handled his own business by, serving chicken at Raising Cane's and selling jeans for Aeropostale and all these different things that I don't think you expect a 15, 16-year-old to be doing. Never mind seeing your peers and I guess counterparts having these incredible seasons and seeing the likes of Gozo, Alan Ross, Lake, getting the shouts of like, he should be going to the World Cup. Like, I'm sure that weighs on him a little bit.
Yeah,
or quite a bit.
I knew that there was at least another few guys that are in his age range that are sprinkled around the league that are getting a lot of buzz. And that was around the same time everyone's like, why aren't they playing Cavan? Like, this is why Sporting Kansas City came in and offered it to loan him because of the sporting director's relationship with Man City and all that. Like, I get that. And I think, like, he definitely is just itching to prove that he's as good as advertised. And I think he's done so. I do have, like, a couple of things that I would recommend. But overall, I think he's been surprisingly good for being so young.
So let's play a clip. Todd did a lot of really good work to the point that he almost got himself in trouble by preparing for the podcast ahead of tonight in terms of staying at the stadium a little too late. He was able to speak with certainly at the press conference with Darnell, spent some time with Cavan, Sullivan, and Nate Harriel, who wore the captain's armband on the night. But I want to talk a little bit with you, Mark, about the defensive mistakes that the Union continue to make, where they find themselves going into the half down 2-0. Here's Nate talking about the defensive mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just on one person. We're a team. We all go through this together. But at the same time, it is very frustrating because it's the same little mistakes. It's not like they're crazy mistakes, but at the same time, it's what costs. It's the difference between a win and a loss, and that showed tonight. But at the same time, we stick together as one team. I have to be better. I look at me first in the mirror. Everyone has to be better when they play. So yeah.
A lot of mistakes being made, and ultimately where the Union find themselves week in and week out, at least from what I noticed. I know you and I spoke on the phone as you were preparing, watching, I think, 2 previous matches ahead of this one, which is incredible prep. Thank you. Is that the Union often find themselves digging such a deep hole for the team that when they turn it on in the second half, it's almost a little too late. And it's these little mistakes that, sure, you can fast forward, as I know many people do, and just pick out one single play, let's say all the way through Macanya's mistake in handling the ball. But if you really backtrack and you have the eye for ball, the mistakes stem from something completely different. And I would even argue starting with the press up front, going right down the middle. But Mark, give me your take on all this.
Yeah, you're dead on. There's a few different aspects to it. So on that specific play for the first, the PK that was given away, it's not good for Macanya, but when you look at I think the big concern for me as a coach, I would say the pace in which Orlando was able to break through our entire lineup to even get to that point. That's a concern, and I think we've seen it. I think the opponents that we've faced have understood where our gaps are in between the lines, so they're able to find the spaces right in front of, or since we don't have a centralized 10, that gap for any deep-lying playmaker is just going to be free all day. Right. And we saw that with the Revolution, and it just – in the way what you said with the advanced press, I don't think the press is quite as effective as last year, because it's crazy trying to think back to last year, and it wasn't that bad, right? Mm-hmm. Or how did it change? Because I think this year, or I guess I'll just state this year, the 2 forwards aren't necessarily really putting too much pressure on the center backs. For any of the games that I've watched, they're able to just kind of pass along the back, find the angles into that gap where we don't have a central 10, and then keep working their way through the lines. Sometimes those sequences happen so fast that the back line is in panic mode, and you want to it's unrealistic to keep them on their back line the entire game.
Of course.
But what you don't want is 3 layers of defense broken within 5 seconds. You want to try to slow that pace of progression down so everybody can kind of maintain their shape, understand where their man marks are, and just account for and just be goal side of who you're supposed to be responsible for. All the position groups are responsible for the opponent's position groups. And when the transition happens, or the breakthrough happens so quick, it just becomes chaos for each of those groups, especially the back line, who may have midfielders running at them while they're already marking forwards. And it's a tough thing to deal with, but I think that points to the tactics too. like Dax McCarty said early on in the game or before the game that, and I tend to agree with him because I do like Lukic and Danley as a partnership, but, no matter how good they are or how Dax said, like, they're two of the best or they're probably one of the best double pivot partnerships in the league, that doesn't matter if they have a numbers disadvantage all the time. And it might not have been that way, lineup to lineup with Orlando because they've had the 3-4-3. But still, you have to help out key areas of the field. And, in my coaching, I never want to lose the midfield because it's such a key component of the attack, but also the defense. You want to protect your defense. They should just be playing cleanup back there, not absorbing just intense pressure to where they have to be perfect every single play or else it's a goal.
Jim Curtin used to talk a lot about bending and not breaking, being able to take on as much pressure as they can and withstand it without obviously letting the barge break and allowing goals. I feel like they're certainly doing a lot more breaking than bending lately. And I always go back to this play, and I think I remember clipping it, but I think it's very indicative of what you're describing, what's happening with Philadelphia. And this was from the Charlotte game where Tim Ream, of all people, was able to not even ping a ball. I think it was just a ball that was, I wouldn't even call it perfect. It was just splitting Pulaski and Danley, but finding Charlotte's striker at the top corner of the 18, and then allowing the midfielders to crash in and have an opportunity to kind of give themselves a give and go and find a shot. And they ultimately ended up scoring on it. But I think you're right in that teams, and sure, we can talk about Orlando, but teams across all the games that they played are able to break the line so quickly. And once again, to your point, they're just, you can't, sure, you can have the best 1-2 punch in the midfield, but when you're overwhelmed with numbers or the ball's completely skipping your pressure because they have time to pinpoint the person behind you or the player behind you, it's not even relevant. So something for the Union to consider. And was Tiber Reba the best at pressing? I don't know. Brewer Damiani felt like maybe was a little bit at the press. Is it Alado still learning the pressing cues? Likely. I don't know what has been the regression, but that could be it. And we have Todd, who's supposed to have the night off, of course, mentioning that there were multiple plays last night of Orlando breaking the line. Yes, Justin Ellis did so well in the half space for Orlando. And yes, to the point where the defensive mistakes then are being multiplied tenfold because the defensive players are having to make some decisions and having to make some plays that you try to eliminate. I think about the second goal with Dorsey roofing it on Andrew Rick, who I feel really bad for, actually. Finally gets the opportunity to play and is left to hang against Ojeda. Sure, he could have maybe done a little bit better on the breakaway. But Ojeda is Ojeda, and he's going to have he's a good player. He's a great player. But then this play with Dorsey, with I think it was Iago, I believe was his name, just I wouldn't even call it like incredible dribbling, just holding on to the ball, and the Union players just can't make a tackle to get it off of his feet, and then Dorsey comes in and roofs it on Rick. It's those types of plays that the Union dig and shoot themselves in the foot and dig their own grave, that when they go into the half and come back with whatever type of energy, it's just never enough. But you got to give them credit for, at the very least, having a go at it. Wolfie Commons, I feel like the press is easily dismantled, unlike last season. They just pass around the offense, leaving them completely taken out of the game. I wholeheartedly agree in a way.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of truth behind it. Mark, any comments on Wolfies?
Yeah, because when they pass into that, like, the opposition 6 area, it just, like, I've seen it maybe more so in the Revolution game where either Danley or Lukic, like, try to push up to account and put pressure on the 6 or who's operating there. And it just creates a big hole because it's just 2 of them. So when one's pushing, then it's just they move by. We'll just use Jovan as an example here. When Jovan pushes to press underneath the 2 attackers that just got passed by, they can move by Jovan like he's not even there. And then it's just, again, it's like a full-on open faucet, and they're just running right through. And I think they've tried to – it's definitely something that they're looking at because I think the 2 strikers coming together, they don't want balls coming right through the middle of them. But still, that, again, when the whole back line of the opposition can just pass it around and find the angle into that 6 area and then start – they've already bypassed 2 or 3 players on the Union, and now they're gaining momentum, and it's just definitely not the same. I also think, well, maybe I'll pause on that for now. But yeah, just for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel like maybe they aren't defending as high as they used to. And unlike last night where, Macania was higher up than Raffanello in a few plays. And then, of course, they get broken on. Actually, that was the point I was going to make. Based on this, like, whole press topic, it's almost as if 2026, everybody is playing the Union game more than the Union is. Because how many times do the Union attack and everybody's condensed? They're hard to break down. I will say I do like the passing patterns we have. We move the ball around in nondescript ways. But it's just hard to break down teams that are organized. They have like 9 bodies behind the ball. That's how like Philadelphia used to be, or at least I felt like that. And then boom, guess what? We're hitting you on the counterattack, just as Orlando did all last night. And it's like we're getting beat at our own game that worked last year. Now this year we're just running into the same problems that our opponents last year had against us.
Yes, I'm trying to upload this little thing. Give me a second if I can get it to work. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Mark, in terms of teams out-unioning the Union. It's uploading here. I think you can see it here. Let me take off the comment from Wolfie. I mean, look at this break. The Union trying to play their game of, counterattack pressing, but I count here 2, 4, 7, 8 players right as the Union try to get an attack going, getting behind the ball immediately. I think that just sort of, again, tells the tale that a lot of opponents just really do know and comprehend and maybe can even counter the way that Philadelphia plays. And I don't know that there's a better example than this, because this is 100% the way to beat the Union, right?
Yeah.
Clog their counterattacks.
Because it's hard for any team to have to break down that amount of bodies. Like you see your Manchester City at times, against Bournemouth, who's just
Crystal
parking the
Palace,
bus. So it's just tough to break down. And then on the flip side of that, Ben Bender had a goal and assist, and on the attacking ends, I thought he played really well. But that third, and this is where I agree with Nate Hurriel, it's not specifically one player. It's little, and I think he might be pointing at the tactical stuff that we talk about, but I think he's also referring to I was such a hard ass about in my coaching about if the opponent's on transition, I don't care where you are, you better be trying your best to get behind the ball, or like goal side of it. And like, I said a nice thing about Bender. So now I'm going to say a negative thing. So that third goal, at the start of the play, Bender's in line with where the ball is. By the end of the play, it's a 3-on-1. Where the hell is Ben Bender? Like, he's not even pictured. So, but it's not just him. There's a few other guys, when you see the replay of it, they're kind of like standing there looking, like hoping that the last two defenders bail him out. And then I think even maybe it was Raffanello, like kind of like throws his hands up and just kind of like starts jogging. But by then it's already just a disaster, and you're just hoping that there's a Maguire miss, or, Rick came so close to actually saving that ball. But it's just like, as soon as you see a turnover happening, and this is kind of a pre-defending mentality you have to have. If you're a defender, you need to be knowing your team and reading your team to be like, are we about to give up the ball here? Mm-hmm. If so, I should start making my way back. Like, you have to be honest with your team and say, yeah, this attack's going to break down because we don't have the numbers. I'm going to start moving back. Or, oh, my right center mid just dribbled into two players. He's about to lose the ball. Start making your run back to get on Maguire. He's wide open over there. That's your man. And then kind of the same thing on the end, the last goal, different flavor of kind of team defending, but it's just like awareness of who's most dangerous. So I'm sure we'll get to that eventually, but it's just it sucks to have to make a 3/4 of the field sprint back, but it's damn necessary, because any one of those first three goals could have been prevented, and then we would have got a point or won the game.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that just how there is this striker's instinct, right? The having the, I don't know, having that mentality of knowing when to crash the net, knowing when to go near post, to go far post, or just being at the right time. I think that there is something, I'm a firm believer that there is something like that for defenders, right? Being able to read the play and understand, like you said, oh, Milanolovsky just dribbled in, or let me give you a better one probably. Indiana Vasilev's trying to dribble against the player. Odds are, or metrics would say that he's likely not going to get past that player. Do I really need to make the overlap, or is it better for me to hang back and maybe get into a more central position so once the ball gets turned over, it's not being lobbed over my head, or it's not being an easy pass to then allow them to continue to switch the field? Let's go ahead and play a clip and advance a little bit here into the game timeline to halftime. Really weird situation. Carnell spoke about it today in terms of Jovan Lukic, who has been a steady machine, I would say, for the Union over the year and change that he has been with the club. Very reliable, made a very, very good name for himself last season. Weird substitution. He, according to Cornell, more or less took himself out of the game. Body sort of shut down and just needed to come off. And enter what I would say the man of the match for Philadelphia, which was Cavan Sullivan, in terms of coming and flipping that game upside down. But yes, he came in, was an immediate spark. But what I want to hear from Cornell here in this clip, what was the halftime talk to the group? Because I think you would agree after those initial 45, the Union came back with a little bit of a fire in their belly. So let's hear from Cornell quick.
Yeah, we ended the half in a better way. I could say that. And then we looked a little bit dangerous. We hit the post, I think, twice again tonight, So, but it's just where you are. And the sort of appeal or the plea at halftime was, you can't feel sorry for yourself now. There's still a game to play. give everything, and then we'll see where we are at the end of 90. And again, we win the second half 3-2, but left nothing with points on the board to show for it. Again, guys, solid performances. I thought Jane Martinez had a really good performance. Ben Bender, I think, really helped us out at the left back spot and really dug deep and rewards himself with a goal. And then Cavan comes on and creates a level of uncertainty amongst them because, we did know coming into the game they do give up a lot of goals and they are a bit fragile in the defensive transition. And we exploited that. Then we start playing with a bit of momentum and confidence and, getting into the final third areas. I think, 25 shots or something and 7 on target and 10 to 2 corners. Like everything in a certain way goes in that manner. But we've got to believe. We shouldn't just do things. We have to believe it, and this is the plea for the guys that just to continue to believe and we'll play out those moments and create the chances. Stars comes in, Easy comes in, and it creates a little bit more power and havoc up there after a good shift from Milan and Bruno. So again, I thought everyone contributed, but it's just disappointing. We can't get over the hump.
Can't get over the hump. And again, I think you could go back to the point that we were talking about earlier, right? In terms of them falling into a pit and not being able to get themselves out just in time. But what do you make of that clip, Mark? Hearing a coach who is trying everything and anything to get something out of these games, certainly not the start that he wanted, certainly not the season that he had been hoping to have. I don't think anybody in that building or facility as a whole expected this and certainly didn't want this. I haven't really asked you or talked to you about how you feel about Cornell's sort of during these press conferences and conversations, mannerism, talk, etc.
Based on, so I didn't watch the press conference, but I read some of the transcriptions. And I think maybe a positive thing, even though the results aren't there, is they are still getting the effort, and the coaching staff and the people around the facility, they're thinking about the right things. They're trying, evidently in this game, they're willing to try things to just jumpstart stuff. They aren't, just phoning it in and feeling sorry for themselves. It's you just got to keep going. Like I said in the beginning, it's plenty of these guys have stuff to play for regardless of what the record ends up being at the end of the season. So you'd hope that the fight will always be there. And I think the mentality of some of the new guys, because that's a part of what they want, is to have the right mentality that, they aren't trying to be a doormat to anybody. And, have they been unlucky for quite some time? Yeah, I'd say so. Because, what would we even be having some of these conversations if they just didn't hit the crossbars and posts the way they have? And, that's kind of the nice side, or the nice part about soccer is anything can happen. Unfortunately, when you're on the wrong end of it, it stings. But, I think I'm not necessarily I'm not one of the people calling for Cornell to leave quite yet, because, sometimes you just got to assess who could be available that actually, how much you're set back if you go ahead and hire someone new. And obviously there's no relegation, so that kind of doesn't matter. But then we also have the 2027 season looming, where there's the big shift. So it's some teams, not just the Union, may feel like they're a little bit in limbo in terms of what the roster development will be. It's just another topic for maybe another day, but as we get closer to it, but it's just, there's so many little factors that, there's definitely things that I'd consider with how many times we've talked about it. With one win, you might want to try something different than the 4-4 or the 4-2-2-2, just based on who your opponent is. Orlando, I think it matched up fairly well, but there's going to be teams where you you got to do your players a favor and help them limit the stress of being undermanned in the midfield, not providing opportunities for man advantages in the attack, taking some pressure off the defenders. And it's all like tactical stuff. Like, you don't need to be dead set on a particular formation. I do think that Carnell has a good, like, you can feel it in the team. There's principles, there's a philosophy that you can see it, but that doesn't mean, because I change formations like all the time. I have like 3. I have my default one, but I also have like 2 others that my team can play based on the opponent. But with those formational changes, the philosophy doesn't change. The formation change is meant to enhance the philosophy and bring it more to the forefront. So you're not like, yeah, we want to play a certain way, but then tactically you're not even set up to achieve that. So you got to get,
Or have
again,
the
yeah, because I commend him for trying like the 3-2-1, just talking midfield up, and then 2-3-1, just to see what they were doing. And unfortunately, they get scored on. Probably not because of that tactical switch. It's more of just how high those defenders were on the Union, that just kind of like, you get stung. You're like, this was not meant to, or this was not how it was supposed to go. Because I will say, based on what I saw, I think the intention was, we need to get the first goal.
Yes.
We need to put a ton of pressure on. And then when you get burned by it, you're like, oh shit, we're like, what do we do now? This isn't how we wanted.
Hang your head a little bit.
Yeah, so, I think they're a smart group. I think they'll learn a lot from this, and I just hope that the next 2 games they apply a lot of what they've learned throughout this season so far, and come out with some shock results, despite like Vegas, giving them some giving the Union some love no matter how bad the record shows.
Which I find hilarious, obviously, in collaborating with Mike Barrera and working with him. He's very much into the gambling side of things, and he often comments, I don't know that Vegas really knows who and what Philadelphia are.
They know something about a lot of teams. There's some trap money lines there. Like, oh wow, Barcelona is minus 160 against Oviedo, and then of course they end up like tying, and then you lost your money. But these betting companies, it's crazy how much they know.
So let's talk about someone who is continuing to improve, someone who is continuing to get opportunities. And I think there's a serious argument that continues to build in terms of Cavan Sullivan potentially making a really good shout for himself to become a starter in this team, especially the way that things are going. And if you're going to make some changes during the international break, whatever that may be, Cavan Sullivan is certainly making some noise to be considered a starter even ahead of the international break. He comes in, has a strong performance off the bench, 1 goal, 5 chances created. In MLS world, also had an assist. In MLS world, in the world of hockey assists, technically assisted his second goal. He assisted his own goal by sending it out to Bender, who then sent it back out to him. So of course you can't assist your own goal. So that one didn't count, but ultimately had a great game, I believe, in terms of what he displayed, in the way that he challenged. I felt like even defensively, which is usually where he has he's not a defensive player. He's a guy who's going to create. He's a guy who's going to try to get the ball in and to the box and find bodies and take players on. But it's obvious that Carnell has seen something in him and certainly appreciated not just the history that he created on the night last night, but his performance as a whole. Here's a quick clip of Carnell commenting on Cavan's performance on the night.
They have 8 guys who go in a 1v1, you know, and we have, you know, a couple of guys that we need to provoke that, we need to promote that, right? And Cavan provides us that. He goes in the 1v1 and changes the complexion of a game, then releases a center back out of a pocket or something, and then there's space behind. So, you know, he starts a trickle down effect. And you know, yeah, we shouldn't put all our chips into a 16-year-old because that's unfair on Cavan. You know, that is unfair on him, but he's doing a great job in assuming responsibility and taking ownership and trying. And, you know, and that's great because he's got, you know, chip on his shoulder, and he's, you know, he's got, you know, the positive arrogance about him. And you can see that on display tonight, which is a joy to watch. Yeah.
Positive arrogance for me was one of the key parts of that sentence, and certainly a quote that I included in my article for the league, recapping the night that he had of historic nature, right? Being the 8th youngest player to ever score in the league. Think even a higher up on some list considering his assist as well. So historic night for the guy. What do you make of that quote, that comment, and Cavan's performance on the night, Mark?
When I talked about, like, he has a little bit of an ego about him, like, I'm not, for soccer players, it's a good thing. Until you take it too far. Obviously, he's not anywhere near like the Paul Pogba range or anything like that. I do think it is interesting how Carnell's like talking about the chip on his shoulder, because like he's like the most famous teenager in the sporting world, and at least in this country, and like regardless of, he could be drinking his own fruit punch, but he's not. He knows he has stuff to prove, and he's just going out there and doing it. And I think the comment from Wolfie on Carnell making it sound like he wants to protect him, I mean, just as an outside observer, I would assume that that's the case. And I think it's because it's not maybe a question of ability. It's just, you know, any 16-year-old, you just don't want like a bad injury on somebody who isn't physically ready yet. So, you know, working them in the way that they have, I think he could have came earlier in the season. But like watching the games, when he dips the shoulder and he's shoulder to shoulder with some of these outside backs, like he doesn't look out of place. He's definitely he's mature physically, and he can handle the speed, the physicality, and I'm not concerned about those aspects. And I think Carnell is starting to see that. Like, okay, he's not a boy against men. He can hold his own. So, like, let's keep giving him opportunities. And I do think that, you know, at this point, he should be a starter. There's obviously advantages to coming off the bench in the games, but you also, for attackers, you just need to have some time on the field. You can't just expect to be Alessandro Del Piero coming in for 15 minutes and scoring 2 goals and being like, yeah, it's nothing. Like, you need time to work yourself into the game and make an impact. And I think most plays he's giving a positive impact. I think my only critique for him is, and this is also like on the rest of the team as well, because my general rule is, especially in that position, don't be so eager to dribble yourself into isolation. And then, you know, the teammates around him should also read that, because it's like you're in the Indiana Vassilev example. It's like somebody has to be an option for the guy that's trying to progress the ball. You know, so trail him, be in a good angle to have him lay it off and then cross in. Like, you have to support each other. You can't let each other isolate, because then you just lose the ball and then you're having to run all field to go defend again. But yeah, I think overall his instincts are good. You know, I think a lot of teams around the world sometimes struggle with like who has the desire, who has the creativity in the attack. And I think Cavan brings that even at a young age.
let's hear from him what he thought about his performance off the bench.
Yeah, real quick warm up. But I'm always ready to go in, and I was watching the game and finding in my head and visualizing like where I can make an impact and where balls are falling. My dad told me before the game, just watch the game, pay attention, and look at where balls will fall and pockets you can find. And I thought I came in and did that right away. I felt like I could have had an assist right away to G, but like that late first half push even will go under the radar because of how good the second half was. But we came out flying. Once I came on the field, I felt like we had our moments. So yeah, I'm always looking to come in and make an impact, and I felt I did that tonight.
And that he did. Came in, created chances, rattled Orlando, and ultimately, as I described it for the league in my article or piece, whatever you want to call it, was genuinely the spark that the team needed to maybe have a little bit of fight against, it's probably dramatic to say against all odds, it was a 2-0 deficit, but he certainly came in and shook things up. And I was very impressed for a player to come in off the bench into a game down 2-0 and have that immediate impact. But as we get ready to wrap up about this game specifically, and then we can just sort of open it up to some final thoughts and commentary about the season as a whole, because again, Mark, we haven't had you, or not that I can remember, haven't had you on for a little bit, considering the season that the Union are having. Union just continuing to drop points, period. Obviously losses, but games that could have been draws that ultimately, maybe you alluded to it earlier, but the ball not bouncing their way, things being an inch one way, inch too high, inch too low type of situation. Penny, for your thoughts on all of that once again.
I mean, Union fans probably aren't going to like hearing this, but it's just, I think with the Cavan stuff, and the further, or like the percent chance of making the playoffs starts to dwindle more and more. I think you guys have posted about it, but just like you look around the league at like Vasquez, and you're like, I don't necessarily. I know there's been a lot of negativity on Twitter, but if this season the record never changed, but you also saw that it was Cavan and Chase and like Nelson and which one's the center back of the Piers?
Say it again.
Which
Neil.
Yeah, Neil. So you let some of these guys go permanently or on loan, and it's like, good Union fans have dealt with this record if we were just, showing the next crew of kids that will mature into the new calendar or the new schedule. And yeah, I think like you start to, there's still a chance that, who knows, they could go on a 5-game run. Teams do it all the time, so it's like not out of the possibilities. But the further away they get from the playoffs, you start to think like, what are the actual takeaways from this season? And if it's just solely Cavan, he developed into a world-class player before our very eyes. That's a pretty good one. It's more than some other bottom dwellers could say, but it's just like, it could have been more. And then, who even knows what will happen over the summer with maybe some other guys that have had interests from abroad that might want to just either go back to Europe or go to Europe for the first time. You're like, what will the team look like by the end of the year And then are we going to have to start this cycle all over again in 2027? So it's just like a tough world to be in. So I don't know. That's like the worrying aspect, but also it's like maybe that's why I say that there will be plenty of players out there who have stuff to play for because they do want the big move. And you can't do that by having terrible play. You can't rely on last season's results to propel you to a league that you really want to be in. But also, who you're bringing in. I do think that the guys that they brought in should get a little bit more leeway because they'll develop. Like, we've already seen Martinez make leaps and bounds because early on, pretty tough going. Now he's actually looking like a real player. So, yeah, it just takes a little time.
Yeah, it does take time. And, the more I thought about it as you were speaking, if ownership and John Shear or whoever is going to take that role of Ernst Tanner or Ernst Tanner proper, who comes back in just 2 weeks' time, technically, by the calendar, say there's a coaching change, right? And you do it during the summer break. How much does that set the bet? I think you used this exact term. How much does that set the club back in terms of having a new coach who has to deal with players on a break? Right? Yeah. They're not gonna come in early, and suddenly you're thrusting him into a team that has maybe by the end of these last two games 12 points.
There's plenty of examples. The Pochettino and Tottenham example is probably the most obvious. You're in a Champions League final. You're always on the doorstep. Your team's performing well. They're a lot of fun to watch. And then you just get into a coaching carousel for the next 4 years. And now look at them. It's so I'm sometimes hesitant on coaching changes. That's why I'm not calling for Carnell right now, because it's just if this happened again next year, then yeah, you'd have to start looking. But yeah, unless there's a really, really good option that can be around for 5 years, it's tough to pull a plug on somebody over 5 months of bad results. Obviously, it's because, what if the next coach doesn't work out? Then you got to get another one. Then you got to get another one. And then you're just never back to where, we once talked about it maybe last year or the year before when they were struggling with Curtin. It's you have the Union, who, if you totaled up all the points for the past 10 years, they're a top 3 team, on that 10-year table. And it's as a Bills fan, yeah, it's nice making the playoffs finally. It's more fun to be a Bills fan right now than it was back in the day because we at least have a chance. So I don't know. It's always tough.
It's super tough. It's not an easy decision. And please don't think that I'm being flippant. I've been saying this phrase. I'm not trying to be flippant with people's jobs. It's certainly a conversation among the fan base that needs to be addressed. We have Todd chiming in. People love to point Carnell's second season in St. Louis, but their issues run much deeper than a coach. On their third disco.
Maybe it's a cool slang term that he picked up.
Maybe. Yeah, being in Orlando for a couple of days, suddenly he's a disco.
This ain't his first rodeo.
Yeah.
This ain't my first disco.
Disco.
Maybe it's a typo.
I don't know. But either way, a lot of people are pointing out the Carnell curse of the second season, right? Repeating itself. But that team was a
Oh yeah, he meant coach.
coach. Okay. That team had so many injuries that second year. They also banked so much money into their goalkeeper by, Roman Berkey being a designated player. And the injuries and the departures was just unbelievably difficult that I don't know that you see that in Philadelphia with the structure that they've had. And certainly a much better ending to Cornell's first season in Philadelphia than it was out in St. Louis by hoisting silverware over his head. So it's a tough time to cover the team. It's a tough time to follow the team if you're a fan. But one thing you cannot deny is that it's interesting. Things that can go better, things that are not going well. And just as you start listening around the corners and through the cracks, the things that, are frustrating, there's just so much going on that it's somewhat exciting for those that have their ear to the ground.
Yeah, because I would say, until there's relegation, at the end of the day, it's just entertainment. And last night it was entertaining. So, it ain't that bad. Like, to at least have something to do on a Wednesday night.
7 goals. That was incredible.
And I think Todd got a new tagline for the show. This ain't no disco.
It ain't no disco with Todd Lewis. Mark, any final thoughts? Anything you want to bring up? I know you did a lot of prep for the show, which I thank you for. I am not as great of a host as our very own Todd Lewis, dear friend of ours. So this probably felt a little bit chopped and screwed. But anything else you wanted to comment on about the game and maybe the Union this year?
I don't know. Like, I guess on like the positive note, even though there's not much to be positive about, I do just think like, because I can be negative about a lot of things I see in terms of like styles of play or team or players or teams that I'm a fan of, and I just don't know if they're done any justice like around the league or any of the other leagues that I watch. But like at the end of the day, I mean, it's you just got to keep falling back into your fandom and just appreciate the fact that you have a team to root for. And I know that's like so cheesy and corny, but like you can't be 100% negative. You got to try to find the glimmers of positivity. Like, so I don't know, if you're a season ticket holder, it's like, yeah, just keep going to the games. You'll be telling your grandkids about how you used to watch Cavan Sullivan in his first real year with the Union. Yeah, when you're chopped unks. Already there, man.
When you go and watch seasons like this one, when you go, and I say this on the press side, when you go and cover the team in seasons like 2023 and certainly 2022, it's very easy, right? Because things are going well or things are just sort of happening. It's exciting. But I think you really earn your stripes, and I think this applies to fans too. And when you go through the seasons of 2024, when you go through the seasons like this year, where you get a little bit of that scar tissue, right? You sort of learn with the team and see the folklore of the team really building itself in real time. Of I watched Cavan Sullivan. Like, Todd has a pretty cool thing to say, right? He was in the press box when he watched Cavan Sullivan's first goal, and who knows what the guy's going to go on to do, not just in Europe, but worldwide, whenever his time does come to play at a different level. So,
because the weather will be nice up there, you'll still have your friends. Yeah. Beers are still available.
And overpriced.
Yeah, but, if this is your sport, then enjoy it.
I
will say, if anybody's bored over the World Cup break and they want a little change of pace, look up your nearest USL League 2 team and go check them out.
Absolutely. As I comment right now,
stars of the future.
Rhode Island FC, baby. I am a big fan of Rhode Island FC. I love what they do up there. Beautiful stadium. Probably, I've been told, anyways, probably the best USL stadium in the championship, with Centerville Bank Stadium opened just last year. I was there for their opener. They were kind enough to invite me. Really.
Sure, the Pyra comment to Rhode Island.
Yep, there it is. Yep, give me the Phoenix Rising FC and Rhode Island FC. Yeah, Rhode Island is, like I said, beautiful. One thing I will share, Mark, as you mentioned, things could be worse. One bit of news that happened between last show and today, and obviously the result yesterday, the MLS Players Association, the union for the MLS players, released the salary guide. And sure, the union are bottom spenders, and that's fine. I think I've come to appreciate the approach that they go through in terms of finding these gems and turning them into diamonds, a la Kai Wagner, a la, I think, Frankie Westfield will be one of them, a la
McKinney will be one of them too.
Yeah, I mean, the list is so long. Just be happy, I guess, if you're a fan of Philadelphia, you're not going through a San Diego FC, having
at least you're not wasting a ton of money just to lose.
Yeah, you're not wasting money on a Chucky Lozano sitting on the bench, not even sitting on the bench, practicing.
Send him home.
Yeah, literally sitting at his own practice facility, doing absolutely nothing and making more than, I think, if you were to combine it, probably 8 or 9, maybe 10 players that the union have in one salary specifically. So
yeah, because I wonder if union fans understand that happens a lot more than people think. The teams will sign a player and then we do not want this guy anywhere near the facility. They'll pay his full salary while he sits in Portugal back home. And it's at least we don't have any of those guys.
No, and I had this train of thought, and you making me laugh made me forget about it. But yeah, I lost what I was. Another comment I often see, and I know we're going into an hour 7, so we're in Fergie time right now, just bullshitting time. So I apologize, Todd, if this goes long. A lot of folks sort of commenting, at least before the release of the salaries, and then me doing the math and sharing it out loud per se. Ty Baribo, why wouldn't the guy want to move to DC if he's getting 190% raise, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm not upset about Lesnes, Baribo, and Kai leaving, because
you have to be happy for him.
Yeah, and just I don't know. I always say that some soccer fans just think that real football is all about it's like FIFA. Oh, I'm playing the FIFA video game. I can buy whoever I want. It's no, it don't work like that. And
they're human after all.
Yeah, and I think what would be shocking, I think we've brought this up before, but pretty much every MLS team loses money every year. So it just depends on how much money you're willing to just throw away. And then for what reward? We've seen plenty of teams that spend a crazy amount of money just to be terrible. So, there's a lot of those mechanisms behind the scenes that maybe the fans don't appreciate, because they just look at the FIFA video game as if I spend $200 million this transfer window and I get Camavinga and all the young stars everywhere, my team will win. It's no, you're still behind the controller. You're doing everything. At least try to say that it's similar to Football Manager.
Add some more realism to it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just. I mean, I do think some respect should be put on. Also, speaking of salaries and everything, that the way the union are, they try not to have so much disparity between player contracts to where you have someone way above the rest, because it's a thing in other locker rooms. You have the superstar that is making all this money, and then you got maybe even the college kid who's in the first team who's has a center back partner. He's how are you making 5 times as much as me and you're having a shocker of a season? And it's just like people are like, sometimes the team vibe is just like, how in the heck is this guy making this much money? And it just creates angst among the locker room. But when you strategically pay kind of around the same rate per player, you know, people can't be pointing, like when times get tough, people can't be pointing fingers of like, you're on $2 million a year and you're doing this. I'm on $100K a year and I care more than you. And then you get these personality clashes, and you know, it can't be grounded in money because there is no change. But yeah, Todd said exactly that. Like, it's all about value.
I'm looking it up right now, and yep, okay. Wanted to make sure I had this figure right. A lot of credit has to be given to 2 agents specifically. One is, I guess both of them are very much opinion. I think one's more opinion than the other, which I try to steer clear, right? I like to be pretty straight and forward of, you know, this is what happened. This is not me chiming in or moving the field goal too much. But shout out Olivier Mbaizo's agent. The dude's making $500,000 and not even making some of these game day rosters. So shout out to his agent for getting him that extension that this is the last year and there's only 2 years left. Whatever negotiations happen there, good on his agent. And this is very much an opinion. And I probably would say it to his face too. Shout out to Indiana Vasilev's agent getting him the incredible raise that he got. And I'm sure it was a handshake.
There's a bunch of agents that just like get crazy money for guys that end up even getting cut. Not with the union, but you know, you probably know who I'm talking about. Since we're in free time, my brother sent an AI joke to you.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's so funny. It's too funny. Mark, it's been a pleasure to have you. Please don't be a stranger. Obviously not my show, not my home, but I will forever invite you, whether it is my physical home or someone else's digital home like it is here on the Free Kick Podcast. You, your brother's AI jokes, and anybody else in between, always welcome to come and chat Union with us and the many, many listeners that listen and support the Free Kick Podcast. I believe that this will serve as the midweek episode, especially going into the Saturday match. And then I believe there is one more match. It's Miami's match at Miami. But I believe that rolls back to being, I'm trying to look at the schedule here. Is that a Saturday game then? The following weekend, right? May 24. Yep, 8 days later. So, I'm sure next week, midweek, Todd, whoever, probably try to do something in between to continue to put some good content in between your ears and into your ears, I should say, via podcast, YouTube, video, etc. So more to come. Todd, safe travels back from Orlando. Please save me from ever having to host again. This is an absolute mess that I just pushed through for an hour and 13 minutes. I don't know.
Pretty well.
I don't have a lot of confidence in my hosting duties, but Todd makes it look effortless and really does make it and not make it. He strings it and weaves it together. It's an art, and I think that he is really, really, really good at it. So that's it for now, Mark. Thank you so much. Union, again, 7-goal thriller loss against Orlando City, and now turn the page quickly to welcoming Daniel Gastag and Columbus at Subaru Park this weekend for a 7:30 p.m. matchup. That's a wrap. Appreciate you all, and be safe. Enjoy the game on Saturday. Bye-bye.